Hi, I'm James with British Customs. We've been getting a lot of requests for these Motogadget mo.blaze turn signals. So today we're going to try and fit them on this 2022 T120. And we're going to use our universal turn signal harness. You can use this turn signal harness on any Denali, Kellerman, or Motogadget turn signals to hook up to any Triumph, and they should work. So we're going to try them in different locations, the stock locations on the front and rear, and do our shock mounts and try the rectifier mount, and we'll see how it goes. So we're going to start by removing this whole taillight assembly, and underneath here you got 3 8mm screws, and then there's another 10mm with I believe this is a 5mm. Yeah, 5mm Allen will go there. So we'll start by taking that off with our 10mm on the other side. So one thing to keep in mind, what we're doing here right now only applies to the bikes with the metal fenders, the T120, T100. If you have a street twin or a street scrambler with a plastic fender, you're gonna have to pull the whole fender off to do what we're doing here, because all the wiring is up underneath this plastic inner fender on the plastic fenders. This doesn't have it on the metal ones. All right, so now we're going to take off these 3 screws. You've got our 8mm. You've got a little triangle pattern right here, 3 screws. Make sure you have your wrench set to loosen. Triumph uses a lot of Loctite on these screws, so they're tight the whole way out. So. When you pull these screws out, there should be a washer comes with it. If there's no washer, you want to check and make sure it's not stuck to the rubber bushing here so that you don't lose it. All 3 bolts have washers on them. So now we got all the screws loose out of there. I'm just going to pop the seat up out of the way so that we can flip the lights over. So now we can remove this screw here. It's an 8mm socket. That gives us access to our wiring. And now we're only going to do this for a test fit, so we're only doing one side. So I'm just going to unplug the one side. I'm going to take this light off here. Using your 5mm Allen. Okay, so this is the mo.blaze light. When you get it in the box, it's going to come with that nut on it. So we'd want to take that off. Slide that out. And then for Motogadget, they make these adapters that fit right on here. So you can screw right into that with the stock screw. Actually, it comes with replacement screws too, so put it in there. This is going to slide right through. So now I've got that in there. Just going to snug this up just a little bit with my 2mm Allen. And then we'll readjust that once I get the lights hooked up. We'll be able to see where it's at. Going to pull your wires through the big hole. And I'll take the screw that came in the kit. Put that in. My 5mm Allen. So one thing you'll notice on the stock setup, there's a little piece that protrudes through here and lines up in that hole and keeps it from turning. And we don't have that now on the Motogadget one. So you want to just make sure that your wires aren't getting pinched anywhere. They got to be free through there in that hole. And if you have it offset too much, like that, you might be pinching the wires. So you want to make sure, try and get them right in the center and then tighten it down. Now we got this mounted up here, we need to hook up the attachments from the harness, the universal harness, to connect these wires to there. These wires can be spliced back to make shorter, but it's really hard. You're really taking a chance when you're splicing this outer insulation off of messing these wires up. And these are real thin, like 24, 26 gauge wire. Very easy to mess up. In here, if you were to roll this all up, there should be enough room, because the wire is so thin, in the end, to just leave the wire as long as it is. And then it also leaves you the option, if later on, if you want to move them to the shock, they're still long enough to reach all the way back, and you won't have to extend the wires at all. So that's my recommendation. If you want to cut them back so there's not so much wire in there, that's up to you. So in the wiring harness, you have your posi seal splices here. You want to stick that through the cap. Then you have that little post there. You want to get that wire kind of wrapped around it, so when we tighten it on, it makes the connection. So we're going to take our other cap off. Get the wires through. The wires in the harness are a much tighter fit than the Motogadget wires, which they really should be, because that rubber seals it there, and there it doesn't. But it's all protected underneath there, so that's not bad. Now you got a little bit of wire sticking out there. So it should hopefully be good enough. So when you're done, you want to give a nice little tug, make sure everything's staying put there. It's not going to fall apart. So now we'll stick the other wire through there. Get it in there. Put that on. Now you'll notice I have the black wire going to the black wire. So the white wire will go to the red wire. Whatever other color you have, that's where the white wire is going to go. Always put the black to the black. See why it's twisting there? Might want to loosen this one up. And then do it just by spinning the cap instead of spinning the barrel. There we go. Give it a nice tug. Now plug the black to the black. Plug the white to the red. Now we'll do a quick little test just to make sure it's lighting up before we go buttoning everything up. That's working pretty good. So this is where we would want to adjust. You can see it's hard to tell when it's blinking. But it does get brighter in one spot than it does in the other. So once you have everything good to go, your lights are working, you would have put the other one on, check that one, make sure that was working. Then you can roll the wires up, tuck these up nice in there. Naturally, you would have a couple more from this one. And then take the wire. Try and get it up there nice and neat. And then we can take our little cap right here. Screw it back in. Your 8mm socket. Tighten that down. Just make sure your wires are up where they're not going to get pinched at all. And put this back on the fender. So now we're going to put the screws up in here, the 8mm hex. Make sure you have your washer in place. Now we put this screw in. The screw comes in from the outside. Nut is under the fender. Screw that on with your 5mm Allen and 10mm socket. Okay. So here's that little angle that we're talking about. That should be so that it's angled this way towards the back. Seems to be where it's at its brightest. Now we can tighten that up. I'll double check it. And we could see if it's any brighter anywhere else. I mean, to be honest, I don't think you can really tell the difference when it's flashing. Okay, so if you just repeated the same on the other side, that would complete this whole assembly if that's what you were looking to just maintain this taillight with your getting rid of the stock turn signals. That's basically all you got to do. So now we're going to mount this to our shock over here. This is the most popular mounting style, using our bracket mixed with the Motogadget. You can mount it to the inside here, which is going to require that we drop the fender so that we can get to the inside bolt on that point there. So if you're going to put your turn signals right here on the shocks and you were running a British Customs taillight, you can use this adapter right here, and you're going to plug your turn signals right in here, and your taillight would plug to this. In this case, we're going to leave the stock taillight there and eliminate the turn signals here. So we're going to run our wiring all the way back to here and plug in where the stock turn signals plug in. So I'm going to start by removing the taillight from the fender. You could start by removing the whole fender and then removing the taillight on your workbench from the fender. But the only reason why I'm going to do it this way is because I avoid scratching the fender by laying it on the workbench and trying to work on it. Yeah, it's easier to get to these bolts, but you're risking damaging your paint and stuff. So I'm going to start by removing this, unplugging it from here, and taking it off. Okay, to unplug here, you just need to lift up on this tab a little bit, give that a little pull. Then we want to disconnect it from these tabs here. I need to push it out a little bit. This one's a little extra tight. Okay. Now we can remove it from here. So using my 10mm socket and my 5mm Allen, I'm going to remove this bottom screw. Now 8mm. Got the 3 screws under here. Make sure you have the washers with the screw. If there's no washer on the screw, just check that it's not stuck on the rubber. Now we're going to loosen these with a T30, and this will allow the fender to drop down a little bit and make room for this plug to fit underneath there when I pull the tail light off. Okay. That'll probably be enough, I hope. Pull it out. Okay, now so we can continue to remove the fender. First thing we want to do is remove the seat release cable. Which might take a little persuading. There you go. And we already have these ones loose, so now we're going to start loosening the front. So you can just leave these screws in place right there so you don't lose them. And now we can push up on here and just finish taking these ones out. And support the fender so it doesn't just drop out of the bike. All right, we're going to start by assembling the light into the mount from Motogadget. Pull the wires through. I'm just going to snug up this little set screw right there with our number 2 Allen. I don't have to make it too tight, just a little bit so it's not falling out. wires through the big hole there. We'll get the screw from the kit. Now before you tighten that down, you just want to make sure that your wire is centered in there and not getting pinched off like that or that. Try and keep everything centered and hold it in place. With your number 5 Allen, tighten it up. Okay. So now we want to put the harness connector onto our Motogadget light. So you slide the cap onto these wires, and these are pretty hard to get in. Nice tight fit. So just got to keep spinning little by little. Get a decent amount of wire towards the end in there. And then when you screw it on there, they'll make contact and hold. Give it a nice tug, make sure it's tight. Do the same thing on the other side. You get that where wire is popping out. Seems to keep happening on this one. It will give you difficulties. Okay. So now we want to take one cap and run the wire from our turn signal through it. We're going to put black to black. Make sure the wire's got good contact around it. And tighten it up. Do a nice pull. Make sure nothing's loose. Get the red wire. Now these ones go through much easier. There's a much thinner gauge wire. Nice tug, good to go. Now we can put the light on the bike. All right, what we want to do is we're going to mount to this screw hole right in here. So we're going to start with our screw, put our lock washer on, put our flat washer on, and come through this way. Make sure your light is facing outwards, not in that way. We get a lot of questions about this star washer, what it's for. Well, this goes in between and sandwiches in between the frame and the bracket, and that keeps it from moving back and forth once it's all tightened down. Get our 5mm Allen. Tighten that up. Get it to where we're happy with the angle of it. I like to put them kind of straight, level with the ground. See, now with that star washer in there, that doesn't move. If you didn't have that in there, you could push down on that and it would start to move. So now we can pull our wires this way and get our fender back up. Now you would want to do the other side, but for this video we're only doing one side. But you would want to do that. Same thing on the other side. And then we will put our fender back up. So this clip that holds the seat latch cable in place interferes with the turn signal bracket, and it hits over here and won't allow the fender to go up. You could, if you wanted to, take some time and trim it down until it fits, or you could just completely take it off. If you were going to take it off and you didn't care, it would probably be easiest to just get a knife and cut them off right from there. I need to put this one back on, so I'm going to try and get it off without damaging anything. So I'm just using a little plastic pry bar. Try not to scratch anything or break anything. Hope I'm lucky. Well, I'm going to leave that one there because I just need to put it back anyway. But these are what we call Christmas tree screws or connectors, whatever you call them. All right, so now assuming you had both in place now, this is why we want to leave these screws in place also, because now they're right there for us to put our fender in. Make sure your wire's up and out of the way. Come in, and then we can start each screw. Then you can let go of your fender. Get your T30. All right, so now these ones, you just want to tighten the ones in the front. We want to leave the rear ones hanging because we got to bring that plug back through again. So I'm just going to turn these in just enough to make sure that they're secure, but still have plenty of play. So now we can slide the plug back through there. Plug her in. Just gonna lay this back down for a second while we get this stuff back in. Okay. All right, lay a little rag down here, and then we can take this off and work from here. With our 8mm socket. Take that off. Okay. Now we want to disconnect the lights. And I would always recommend doing these one at a time so you know which ones went to which. In either case, we're only doing one. Normally you do them all, but I would still only do one at a time. So with your 5mm Allen. Disconnect this screw. So now you want to run your turn signal wires under the frame between the fender. I'm going to plug our black wire into the black and plug the white one into the green. Always go to the black, and then the white to whatever other color there is. Put those in there, right along with the stock harness. You would repeat the same thing for the other one. Run it through there, plug it in. So now you can just get everything tucked in neatly. You would have a couple extra wires there from the other side if it was in. And this one can be a little testy trying to keep them in there. There we go. And with your 8mm, put that sucker in there. Make sure no wires are getting pinched. Now, put this back. Keep your wires along with the stock harness up there. Make sure our rubber gasket's in place. Come on. Okay. Make sure the wires are in that little channel there, so nothing's getting pinched. All right. So now we just want to start our screws back in here. Start each one by hand, and then we'll tighten them all.
Washer.
Make sure your washer's in place. On this very bottom one, the screw comes in from the outside, and the nut goes on the inside. Their 8mm socket. Tighten these three up. So with your 5mm Allen, 10mm socket, tighten up the bottom one. Your T30, tighten these up in the back. So now you just want to tighten down the wires from the turn signals. You would have both of them running through here. Just keep them along with the stock harness. Try and keep it neat looking. And you have this little extra wire. You would have some left over from the other one side too. You just want to get that together and just tie it here. Like that. All right, so if you'll notice inside the lens, there's a bit of an angled lens facing this way. We want that to be angled so it's going towards the back. You'll see some lettering on the light itself, and that should be on the back side of it there. Once you know everything's good there, get your 2mm Allen, snug that screw down. That's it. All right, final check. You would want to try, if you have both sides, make sure everything's working. And if everything is working, then you're pretty much done. You just got to get your seat back on. You're good to go. Now to install the front turn signals, we're going to remove the stock one. We're going to put the Motogadget one on the bracket here. We need to remove the headlight first. So we use a 5mm Allen. And we got another screw on the other side. So now we need to unplug the headlight from the harness. Just kind of gotta pull that off. And we need to remove this plug. So if you can get a little screwdriver under there, you're pushing down and kind of prying up there. And then we can pull it out. So now with our 12mm socket, take this bolt out. And for the video, we're only doing one side, but even if you were doing both sides, I still recommend only one side at a time, because that leaves the headlight in the air. You don't have to worry about a place to put it. It's nice. I'm gonna pull these wires out here and unplug them. With our 5mm Allen, take the stock signal out. Okay, so now we're going to put the Motogadget adapter on. We're going to use the stock screw that we just took out with the washer. Goes in the back hole here. Just put it in hand tight. You want to check that this hole is aligned the best that you can. You want the most exposed hole there. Use your 5mm socket. Tighten it up. Looks like it went off a little center there, so loosen it up again. That's pretty good. All right, so now we're going to insert turn signal wires. I'm going to bring this in here. And you'll see a little bit of writing on there. And it says E1. That's where we want it to stay forward. a 2mm Allen. I'm going to tighten the set screw. I thought it was already snug. There we go. So now we're going to put the posi seal on and take the cap off of the posi seal first. Push the wires through. So give it a little turn back and forth a bit. So you can see the wires starting to come in almost to the end. That looks pretty good there. So now we can screw that on. It's nice and tight. Put the other side on. Looks pretty good there. Nice and tight. Now, this is a lot more wire than we need, but these wires being this small, very hard to splice because you have to trim away the outer sheath, and a lot of times you go to do that and you damage the wires underneath and you keep trimming it back until you run out of wire. So it's so thin you can fit it in the headlight, so I recommend just leaving it the length it is. Take off the cap. You want to put your red to the white, put the black to the black. You always put your black to black, and then whatever color you have, you put to the white. Put the black one on. Check them, make sure they're tight. So now, I'll pull it in here, and I can plug them in. Go black to black, and put the white, in this case, to the green white wire. Test it out. Okay. So now that we've got that part down, we're going to do the same thing and mount it down here because it would be all the same steps. So we have a bracket to mount this same light down here. So that's what we're going to do now. So to screw the bracket on, we need to remove these plugs out of here. I need to reuse these plugs, so I'm trying to be a little gentle with it, but you could just grab them with a pair of pliers and twist them on out of there. I'm gonna need to put them back in, so I'm trying not to wreck it. go. One. Okay. You have in the kit, you got lock washer, you got a flat washer, and you got brackets. So the bracket goes this way with the bolt hole up. And this is a 4mm Allen. Again, we get our screw, our lock washer, our flat washer. We screw it in. Okay. Just want to check that it's space is even on both sides. Tight down. So with these turn signals, you have two options the way you can mount it, either with the adapter or without the adapter. Both have their advantages, disadvantages. I'll start without the adapter. Without the adapter, comes through, bring it through the big hole in the front. Then you would slide the nut on. And tighten it that way. So it's nice and tight in there, doesn't stick out too far, but now you have this exposed. So all that comes out, your wire. You could probably put some heat shrink or something on there and make it look a little neater. So that's up to you, how you want to do it. The other option with the bracket, pull the wires through the big hole. And we just screw in the screw. So that's nice and clean, covers up the bolt threads, but now you're sticking way out. So it depends on what you like better and how much you want to go through to make it look nicer on the other side. The other thing is the small hole here that the bolt goes through is also exposed if you don't use the adapter, which again could probably be plugged up somehow. But we're going to leave the one with the bracket on for now to finish our install. All right, so the option with the bracket, I'm going to put a screw through the small hole in the back here. So that's one advantage to having the bracket, is that when you screw this together, you don't have that exposed hole that you would otherwise have if you didn't have the bracket. It's there with our 5mm Allen bit. We're going to tighten that up. And now run the turn signal through. And with our 2mm Allen, I'm going to tighten the set screw on the back side here. So the one thing about the bracket is it sticks the turn signal way out further, which is probably for safety reasons better. But if you're looking for that tighter look, then you might want to just run it without the bracket. So the other advantage that you have here is that you don't have the stud sticking out with the big nut on this side. Everything's nice and clean. So we're going to leave the bracket installed for our final install on this. I'm going to run the wires up in here. Okay, now we want to take the cap off of our posi seal. Screw it on there. I'll put the other side in. Screw that on. Nice and tight. We'll connect over here. We're going to go black to black. Always go black to black. And then the white goes to whatever other color there is. Nice and tight. So now I'm going to plug these wires in. Go black to black. And in this case, we're going white to green. Test that light. So that works. Okay, so now we want to put our headlight mounting screw back in, a 12 millimeter socket. Then we would move over normally and do the other side. And once the other side was done, everything's plugged in, get a couple cable ties and wrap these wires up so that they're neat. Let me do this first, make life easier. Snip. You can stay right there. So now we just want to plug in bottom plug. Plug in the big plug. All right, you want to make sure this clip is going underneath that little nub right there. Pop them in. Start the screw by hand. Go over to the other side. Start that screw in. And then with our 5 millimeter Allen, that up.
So after you're done, just turn them on and say that's it.
Okay. And that's it.